Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of... And today we're going to be taking a look at Connor Murphy. I'm sure most of you know of him. Basically, he ran the dumbest fitness channel imaginable. He'd just take his shirt off in front of girls and record how they reacted. And recently he had some kind of weird mental breakdown or something, and he claims to have had a spiritual awakening.
Yeah, I finally had the pure, actual spiritual awakening. You know, it starts out understanding this whole concept of oneness and non-duality on the intellectual level. And I was there for a long time, you know, meditating and understanding these things on the intellectual level, but then I actually experienced it, right? So I experienced this whole incredible concept of non-duality, oneness, the collective consciousness, right? That I'm the universe, stuff like that. And then I had these incredible realizations that kind of fermented in my mind, and now I realize, wow, I know enough through direct experience that I could tell people about this.
So Connor has been acting pretty crazy lately ever since he claims to have had this whole spiritual awakening experience, and since then he's been promoting some pretty stupid, dangerous ideas and doing some pretty stupid, dangerous things himself, namely his 40-day water fast. He's planning on not eating anything and only drinking water for 40 days, and he's even live streaming the whole experience on his main channel. I don't think I really have to explain why that's a stupid, dangerous idea to anyone. I think everybody has enough common sense for that. So today I wanted to hone in on some other stupid and potentially dangerous ideas he has. Namely, a video that he uploaded to his alternate channel, Connor Murphy Talks, titled Scientific Explanation of Jesus, Heaven, and God. So my first problem with this video is in the title. God, Jesus, heaven, these are fantasy creatures and realms that don't exist outside of your imagination. So for you to claim that there's a scientific explanation for these things, you're really just admitting that these ideas are stupid in the first place, and you're just trying to sucker in smarter people into adopting these nonsensical beliefs. So yes, please, Connor, explain to me with science how your imaginary friends are real.
So, what I'm about to do is tell you a logical, practical, and scientifically explainable version of the story of Jesus using evidence from the Bible itself. The best documentation of this story that we have.
Yeah, Connor, and I have a logical, practical, and scientifically explainable version of the Easter Bunny story, and of course I'm only using the best, most accurate documentation we have available, a children's storybook. You don't seem to understand that the Bible isn't an accurate source of information. You can't consider these accurate historical accounts. This is the same book that claimed a 600-year-old man named Noah captured 2 of every animal on Earth and kept 2 of every animal on Earth inside a boat that was only 500 feet long, and he did this to protect him and his family and these animals from a worldwide flood that never actually happened. So, Connor, why are you even bothering doing this? Someone who is going to be convinced by this nonsense doesn't care about science to begin with, and anyone who does care about science isn't going to be convinced by bullcrap in the Bible.
Now, I want to start out by saying that it doesn't matter which version of the story you believe, as long as you truly believe it. We'll never know the true story. But it's not the story that matters. It's the message. None of the stories have to be true for them to be powerful. As long as what you believe truly, 100%, made you believe that death is an illusion, made you free from the ego and mental suffering, and has you only spreading good in the world, well, that's all that matters.
So a story about an all-powerful God sacrificing himself to make up for sins that he created is supposed to make me a better person. Reading that ridiculous, nonsensical story is supposed to give me any kind of practical knowledge or wisdom that I can apply in real life to become a better person. Connor, I'm convinced you've never read the Bible or the story of Jesus, which I think is a good thing. I think you'd get more knowledge, wisdom, and practical advice out of reading Spider-Man comic books. And I mean, at least there's more evidence that Spider-Man is real. I mean, there's more photos and video evidence. See any photo or video evidence of God?
The problem is, if you're like me, the story of Jesus that's accepted today seems to go against science, which makes it very difficult to believe, and makes it not as powerful as it was back in the day when science was limited. I'm about to tell you a version of the story that could really help a lot of people, because it doesn't break any laws of science. Now, the goal of this story isn't to make you believe that it happened exactly this way. The goal is to make you realize that it's possible that the story of Jesus could have happened within the realm of science. Because then his teachings, the true meaning of them, will be paid attention to, even by believers in science, and the world will become a much better place.
So Connor's claiming that, he's just trying to open people up to the message and teachings of Jesus Christ. And, if we just adopted that message and we learned all these teachings, the world would be a better place. Interesting you say that when Jesus never spoke out against horrible atrocities like slavery. In fact, he promoted slavery. He said that slaves should obey their masters. There are many passages throughout the Bible promoting slavery. So you're telling me the world would be a better place if we adopted the backwards, bigoted beliefs of ancient primitive people who lived during a time where horrible human rights issues like slavery were commonplace. Does that not sound stupid to you, Connor? You've clearly never read the Bible and you know nothing about Jesus, yet you're promoting this nonsense.
So, with all that in mind, let's first explain the death and resurrection of Jesus, the gospel, from a perfectly practical, logical, and scientific perspective. So, Jesus was human, actually human, like you and me. He was simply a man who found true health and happiness within. He found the ultimate path to self-improvement. He found the truth of the universe. Christians would call this finding God. Buddhists would call this becoming enlightened. Part of both of these incredible things is realizing that death is an illusion. Go watch my previous video to see how important this concept is and how dramatically it can change your life. Jesus also realized that all of consciousness is one, and that he could become truly healthier and happier by making other people truly healthier and happier. This is why he preached not to sin. Sinning doesn't just harm others, it harms the true self. Jesus lived a pure human experience, free from the attachment to the ego or the false self. And he realized that if every human on the planet found what he found, not only could people find heaven within their minds, but life on earth.
So this is more misinformation, and it's becoming increasingly more clear that Connor has never read the Bible. He describes Jesus as someone who has achieved inner peace and happiness. And he also describes Jesus as someone who has no ego. Funny you'd say that when Jesus is quoted as saying in the Bible that you have to love him more than anything else. The only way to enter heaven is to love him more than your own family members. And in the Bible it states that if you love your own children more than you love Jesus, you will not be allowed into heaven. Does that sound like somebody who doesn't have an ego demanding that random strangers who don't even know him love him more than their own children? Does that sound like somebody who's achieved inner peace and happiness within himself, where he demands complete strangers who don't know him love him more than their own family members? So, Connor, this is just a very dishonest, ignorant representation of the Bible and who Jesus really was.
So he made it his life's mission to teach enlightenment, or God. He was simply a spiritual teacher, teaching the same principles as Buddha, or even Eckhart Tolle. All true spiritual teachers are teaching the same thing, just in different ways. Now, unfortunately, not everyone would listen to him. The ego of the world, while less than today, was still too strong. So he had to increase his credibility, no matter what the cost. So he simply became an amazing actor, an amazing magician. One thing he did to gain credibility was miracles. But these acts did not go against science. People simply didn't understand how they were done. At this point in time, the ego and scientific understanding was so lacking, they attributed these acts to divinity. If these same acts happened in society today, they'd be called fake or simply a magic show. Think if the world's greatest magician went back 2,000 years and performed his greatest act. People would worship him. People would think he's divine. Even healing the sick has a scientific explanation. Stress and chronic cortisol release is one of the biggest health issues today. It ages us and it lowers our immune system. Mental stress can cause a huge release of chronic cortisol and it builds up over time. It doesn't just go away. Mental stresses that we had when we were kids still stick with us today in the form of the ego. Now, Jesus was so powerful because he could eliminate this mental stress with the promise of an afterlife and forgiveness. Even his disciples perform miracles like this in the Bible. It was a human thing to do. Now, some other miracles were surely set up and had some people in on it. In the Bible, Jesus couldn't perform miracles on command. When asked to do this, he would say, "You shall not put the Lord your God to the test." Some miracles could only be accomplished with proper planning. The greatest example of this being his resurrection from the dead. Jesus' death and resurrection was an extremely well-planned and well-executed magic trick that was designed to free people from the illusion of death and give him more credibility, so more people would listen to his teachings, so he could spread the word and enlighten more people.
So Connor ended up contradicting himself here. At first, he claimed that Jesus was this amazing teacher. He was trying to enlighten everyone. But then he later claimed that Jesus was a con artist and he'd use magic tricks to fool ignorant people into believing that he had supernatural magical powers to, convince them to just, give up whatever the hell they were doing and just follow him aimlessly. So these two things are contradictory. You can't claim that Jesus was trying to enlighten everyone while at the same time he was trying to fool everybody, deliberately making them more ignorant to reality, convincing these people that magic is real and he has superpowers. It's just stupid. And then Connor tried to rationalize some of the miracles that Jesus, supposedly performed. Like, okay, yeah, sure. The resurrection could have been like a magic trick. Maybe Jesus was Chris Angel mind freak or something. But you can't explain all of these miracles by just rationalizing it in this sort of way. Jesus is claimed to have cured leprosy in a time where there was no cure for leprosy. So how do you explain that, Connor? Oh, you didn't read that part of the Bible, did you? Because you didn't even bother reading the Bible.
Jesus wanted to get arrested. It was all part of the plan. So after he was arrested, when Jesus was on the cross, the person guarding over him was called the centurion in the Bible, which basically just means a soldier. Now keep in mind that the centurion was a believer. You can read this in Mark chapter 15, verse 39. And believers are going to believe the word of Jesus, even if he's acting. So in Luke chapter 23, verse 46, Jesus actually announced that he was going to die, and then took his last breath. Now to me, and if anyone else in today's time would have witnessed this, we'd know that it was obviously just acting.
So again, this is a very inaccurate retelling of the story. So again, Connor is trying to rationalize the whole event with Jesus' death and resurrection. And he claims, oh, this was all just, part of Jesus's plan. He intended to get captured. He intended to get killed. And, he had multiple people in on this whole scam. Okay, well, first of all, there are some things in the Bible that contradict the story. For one thing, while Jesus was on the cross, he cried out and claimed that God had forsaken him. In some translations, Jesus says God abandoned him. Kind of strange to yell that out when supposedly everything was going to plan. Weird. And secondly, you left out a very important part in the story where when Jesus supposedly died on the cross, there was a huge earthquake, tombs opened up, and Jesus raised saints from the dead, and these resurrected dead people walked out into the town, and apparently there were many witnesses to this event. So, was this another one of Chris Angel Mind Freak's tricks? Did he pay off a bunch of people? Were they working with, a studio or something? Holy crap, this is just all dumb. There's no way to rationalize these events in the Bible. They're all just stupid stories.
God is simply the true self, the self beyond the ego, the universe, the true self that Jesus and many other enlightened people have found. Free from the illusion of death and free from the ego, which includes negative thoughts and evil tendencies. Anyone, literally anyone, can reach this form of God. It just takes spiritual practice.
So again, Connor is trying to promote this idea that Jesus was this kind, loving person who is enlightened. He wanted to show everybody the truth. That's completely contradictory to your own claims, where you admitted that Jesus was a con artist. He lied to everyone, and he promoted very harmful, dangerous beliefs. He tried to convince people that, like, actual magic is real, yet you're trying to claim that he was showing people the truth by lying to them and promoting beliefs like magic. It's insane. And look, Jesus wasn't this kind, loving person. He never tried to abolish slavery. There's many passages in the Bible that promote slavery, that promote homophobia, that gay people are evil and sinful. Like, you have to recognize the Bible was written like thousands of years ago by a number of anonymous authors. Jesus isn't even a real historical figure. This is all just crazy nonsense written by primitive people. Why you would be promoting a book like this to promote spiritual enlightenment, it's just insane, Connor. I don't think you had any bad intentions by making this video, but you're promoting really harmful, stupid ideas here. So you should know the truth about the Bible, about Jesus, and if you want to achieve some sort of spiritual enlightenment, the Bible is not the place to look for it. Let's just put it that way. So hopefully you enjoyed this video, blah, 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 subscribe.
What a relief. When will this poisonous product cease? This is another public service announcement. You can believe it or you can doubt it. Let us begin now with the cow. The way it gets to your plate and how.